or Kimberly may not. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. This is the Town of Andover Board of Finance Special Budget Workshop Meeting for Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. We will start by calling the meeting to order, and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item is to open it up for public speak. I know we have various members of the community we've asked to be here to kind of discuss the budget options. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? Eric, do you want to go around?
Sure. So first up would be Linda Fish.
Just here to listen. I don't miss being there.
Okay, so
Come on, Linda.
Wally, do you want to talk about anything other than how it relates to the registrar's office?
No.
Okay. Carol Lee, do you want to talk about anything other than your own respective position as the town clerk?
No, thank you.
Okay, so next up is Jan Massey. Okay, Jan, you're muted.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jan.
Is it better now?
Yep.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Jan, did you have
Want
anything
me just to
to
start?
anything you wanted to bring before the Board of Finance? Any public comment?
I did. So my name is Jan Massey.
Mhm.
I am a volunteer at the Andover Food Pantry. Been doing it for a couple of years, I guess. We're currently open, twice a week, seeing about 200 families a month. Many of our families are senior citizens from Andover, but we're open, we provide anybody that comes, we provide them with food. So prior to COVID, we were getting all our food other than donation, personal donations. We were getting it from Food Share in Wallingford. They were supplying everything to the pantries. But that changed with COVID. And now we have to pay for items. So our pantry, with the 200 people, we get a monthly order from Food Share, and it's probably between $750 to $1,000 a month. So we've been scrounging, pretty much. We do, the big pumpkin patch. That's our biggest fundraiser. The issue probably were the holidays. So for Thanksgiving, Food Share helps us out a lot with turkeys and potatoes and vegetables and all that kind of stuff. But for Christmas and like Easter, they don't, because it's they consider it not a Catholic holiday, but a religious holiday, and so therefore they don't. So everybody's used to getting those items, the hams and everything like that, and it's just costing us a lot of extra money than we were used to. So we're trying in many ways to try to find as many fundraisers as possible. I have a new one starting. Connecticut Food Share is doing a walkathon in May, and if you make a donation on their website and you indicate Andover Food Pantry, 100% of that money goes to Andover Food Pantry. So we're hoping, but right now I'm going to say donations are really, really low. So I haven't been doing this very long, but I had heard that there might be money at the town that they could help contribute to the food pantry, and that's why I'm here. So I'm here to request that if possible, if there's money, and I'm not gonna say extra money because I know everybody's tight, but if there was any way that the town could, put a line item in and give us some kind of money contribution, I don't know even what to call it, but to help us, purchase some food for a couple of months, or we're also in the process of trying to do some renovations at the pantry. I did put in a grant request to Connecticut Food Share for that. It's just
Okay.
it's just hard to come up with money. That's
Yeah.
basically
Jan, I would
why I'm
make
here. So I was just
Okay.
wondering if there's any way that you could consider us.
I think,
No,
well,
go ahead.
there's two comments I would make. So Bill, I see your hand up. Just a second. I'll give you a floor. The one is that this would really be a decision that should go before the Board of Selectmen, and especially if you want something in this budget year, which extends through the end of June. So the Board of Finance really doesn't have authority on direct spend of
Okay.
the money. We have approval responsibility over certain expenditures, and we do have some control over the proposed budget, which is what we're doing here now, but that would not affect this budget year. We don't decide where the town spends the money. We just decide how to fund the budget and then give some approval to certain capital expenditures. So that's kind of how that would work. So we can probably talk about that offline, but I would suggest also
Okay.
approaching the Board of Selectmen specifically about this, because they're really the executive authority of the town. So, and Bill, do you want to go ahead and comment on that or add to that?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, hi, Jan, miss having you on the zoning board of appeals. So listen, I'm involved with a charity through my church, which is Trinity Covenant Church in Manchester. And we have a thing called Hope for 10, and we give out free food once a month on a Friday. It's called Free Food Friday. And we get gobs of free food from the Midwest Food Bank of New England.
Yeah.
And I don't know
We
what
know
the
about
requirements-
them, but they're not taking any new.
Okay.
They're not taking any new people right now.
Okay, all right. Just thought I'd throw it out there because I know
Krista and Hebron had given.
Okay, because I know I'm going on Monday.
Yeah, I mean,
every
you
time I
can
go
put
in
in a
there-
good word for us, but I know.
Every time I go in there, it's a gigunda food warehouse. It's just gobs of food. I can't believe they're not taking anybody new. It seems like they have more than enough food. But anyways, I'll leave it at that. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
And what was it again? It's in Manchester, right?
It's the old Allied Printing. It's Midwest Food Bank. I have a phone
Okay.
number if you want it.
Okay, Joanne, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I mean, I loved it. I'm glad you came before us just to speak of your needs so that you could get some suggestions, Jan. I was just gonna maybe propose to Eric that we send out one of our townwide messages. This would be a great, I know that everybody has giving hearts, and if you're not thinking about it or you don't know about it, I think if we got a townwide message over the radio or over the little email or whatever I get, just saying that the food bank could really use some donations. There's very low. If anyone wants to give the directions. I would, of where they can drop off food. I mean, it can't hurt. I know that everybody likes to give, and in our own town, that would be great. So thank you, Jan, for coming before us tonight. Good luck.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Eric, do you want to move on? Who else we have here? I see Linda, I see Kimberly's joining us. Okay.
I believe that's it for everybody that's not appearing before you in an official capacity.
Yeah. You asked through everyone else. Did you want to ask Linda too? Linda, Derek?
Sure, Linda, Derek, do you want to comment on anything other than registrar stuff?
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Kimberly, I see you joined us. Thanks for joining. I know you have a lot going on today. Okay. We will move on to our next item on our agenda, which is the audit review and corrective action plan, discussion with AES. Don't know if we want to entertain any comment or business on that. I know we still have a pending meeting that is scheduled, I believe, for Monday. A week from Monday, the 15th. So, or at least there's a meeting scheduled. Yeah, Joanne?
I was surprised to see this on the agenda. Did you request it? Or I know I did it. Maybe Eric wanted it.
I did, and it's probably just a holdover because.
Oh, okay. I thought
just-
it was preliminary because I know we're gonna meet and then we'll come back to the board and discuss it. So good to know. Thank you.
Any other comments on this before we move on? Okay, we'll move into agenda item 4, which is to get into the meat of the budget workshop for the fiscal year 2023, 2024. We do have several visitors tonight. We'll try to move through this quickly to allow you to go on with your lives. We do appreciate you coming before the Board of Finance. We know it's your personal time here. The board did have some questions. We were hoping to hear from you about what you're looking for in the budget line. We've got some requests for increases, and it's just good for the board to hear directly from you about what's prompting the request and how you feel about it, and just any facts that we should have regarding that. So we'll start with the town clerk. So Carol, you want to go ahead and kind of fill us in on what you're looking for here?
Okay, so basically all of the budget is the same, except I did ask for a 5% increase in my salary line. That's due to a lot of the election responsibilities and duties have increased and are increased, which requires additional hours. Sometimes, like yesterday, just for the presidential preference primary, I was at 5:30 in the morning till about 9:30 at night. So, you know, when we have these events, it's a 15, 18-hour day. And there's a lot coming down the road as far as absentee ballots. Of course, you know about the early voting. So that just puts a lot of additional duties on the office. Oh, and I did just ask for the 5% because if you're, last year you had given, thank you very much, very generous. And you also gave the supplemental line. So I just had asked for the 5% on the salary rather than do 5 on that line and 5 on the supplemental. And that resulted in $310 more than it would have been if each of the lines were by the 4% that was approved.
Okay, so to clarify, just you're requesting basically a 5% on the regular salary line item, but no increase on the supplemental?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thanks. Just wanted to make sure we had that clear because there was some confusion there. Okay, anybody have any questions for Carol? Joanne?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo thank you all for coming tonight. We also want to make it clear that if we ever do request for you to come forward, like we'll work at your convenience. You know, if we pick a night and it's not good for you, please let us know that. We just wanted to, you know, as you know, the Board of Selectmen had put across a 4% pretty much raise for the non-union people. So it's always good to hear from you in particular. So thanks again for coming forward. And thank you for clarifying that it's not on the supplemental. I think the spreadsheet had pointed that out. And thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Carol? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll go ahead and move on. Thanks, Carol. We appreciate the time and the work that
Thank
you
you.
do.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the registrars. So we have Wally and Linda. So again, I think the same question, basically from the Board of Finance, just kind of wanted to hear what your position was about the proposed increases. You know, as Carol mentioned, we have the early voting. We know that's put additional, excuse me, additional burden on the registrars as well. So I don't know who wants to start first.
Holly, do you want to start? I don't care, Linda. If you want to go first, go ahead. Ladies first.
Oh, um, so yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing to say is that there's a lot of unknown and unpredictability about what the next year is going to look like for us. I can tell you that we will, with the currently scheduled early voting, there's 7 days before the August primary, 8-hour days, 10-hour days. It varies. Then there's 14 days prior to the November election. So that's a lot of staffing. And one of the unclarities is how much staffing we need. So it's hard to predict. In this first experience of the 4 days prior to the PPP, we went with minimal staffing, just what we absolutely needed, which is 2 registrars, a Republican and Democrat, and a moderator. And we had 20 people voted. So then we had the PPP, and Wally, maybe 2%. But it's a peculiar event to judge the popularity of early voting, because it was a sort of non-event event. But when we come into the November preparation, now we'll have absentee ballots, which Carol will be working on. We'll have early voting, and we'll have same-day registration. So that will require a little bit more staffing, different staffing. So we're in the process of training some people, more staff, because we have great election workers for sure, but this, 14 days, 10-hour days and a couple of 12-hour days is different than what most of us have been accustomed to. So we just have to get used to that and figure it out. So there's a lot of unknown. You know about the $10,000 that we received from the state, that every town received. So that's in the budget. Wally, you can speak to that more, as a line item. And right now we're using that singularly for early voting, so that we keep separate what we had budgeted for elections and so forth with the early voting. Next year, we don't know. There is talk of further funding from the state, but it's not procured, and it's not clear how it's going to get distributed. We're a small town, so proportionately it might be a small increment. So Wally did his best in the budget to make sure that we had enough, that we didn't have get in a situation where, in late October or at some point we suddenly run out of money. So he tried to, with our best guess, make that budget reflect what we think we're going to need. So Wally, take it away.
All right, thank you. Basically, we're only looking for a 3% increase in our salary for our normal duties, 5% overall for the registrar's budget. Increasing things like meals, because of course you all know what it costs to go out to eat now, and we do pay our election workers. And as far as the elections, last year we increased our budget substantially for election salaries, knowing that this year we were going into the unknown of early voting. And even though we got the 10,500 from the state, we already anticipate that we will run out of that money for early voting prior to the November actual election date, because of the number of days and hours the state requires. And again, election supplies is up because we have to order extra materials. And again, meals for elections is up. Again, we feed our people, because what we pay them to get them to continue to come and work for us, we figure at least one meal a day helps keep the election workers that we have. So basically it's 5% increase on both budgets. And we are using the early voting monies that we got from the state that was set up in a special account just for us to use for early voting to cover as much of this as we can before we have to go back to our regular budget. And two other things, when Linda talked to the unknown, we have a brand new voter registration system due to roll out sometime this year. And the election management system that we presently use is going to be modified as well. The state has promised us training on those before they roll out. But historically, early voting, we got our final instruction manual 1 week before early voting started. So our fear is that some of these other changes will come very shortly before they're implemented, and we'll have to run around to adapt to these new systems. And again, all of this is being mandated by the state of Connecticut and the Secretary of State's office. It isn't that we want to do all this stuff, it's that we're required to. And willing to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Wally. It's helpful, I think. Anybody have any questions or comments for Wally?
I do. I probably should know this, but thank you both for being here. How many, the two of you are the registrars, and then I know the election workers that come in. How many registrars are there total?
Two
Two.
registrars, two deputies.
Okay, yeah. And
We are
thank you.
technically full-time, even though it's a part-time job, Linda and
Okay.
I. And we bring in the deputies when we need them. And
Mhm.
then the poll workers for the elections.
Mhm. A really nice run system. I know that. And thank you for pointing out, and those, I think that's why I particularly had wanted to hear, just remembering, and you alluded to it, that, and Carol did too, that last year, luckily, we were able to, I believe you all had requested, you know, more of a sizable increase due to all the increased duties and in anticipation of what was coming. And of course, Carol, last year we went through with her too, and she laid it all out for us, and we were able to give the sizable raise last year. So that was the question this year that, you know, bringing you forward to speak to it. So thanks again. That's all of my questions.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, very good. Thank you for your help explaining, guys. And again, thank you for the work that you do. We'll move on to the planning and zoning budgets. So I guess that's, thought we said Jed. Oh, there he is.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
How you
here.
doing, Jed?
Here.
Okay.
So the
Thanks for coming.
first item up was, a discussion about the zoning agent. And he certainly does a lot of work for people other than the Planning and Zoning Commission. But I'd always thought that I could use up all the hours we had allotted to him by myself, and always felt a little bit guilty in doing that. So for last year's budget, I put a little addendum that just talked about the fact that I know, and I haven't asked him specific hours, but I know he puts in a lot more hours than we've been paying him for. And we've got a couple of issues, there are a lot of enforcement issues with the planning and zoning regulations. And he's spending an awful lot of time working those issues, and that could be very frustrating for, the people that, don't want to comply with the regulations, just do what they want. And we're trying to get that resolved without necessarily going to court. So I know, the classic example right now, we're working hard to get the gravel pit across from Dollar General restored properly. And we're having a hard time dealing with the property owner there to get that right. The other thing that came along within the last year, we passed that ordinance on blight. And so that, Jim's the guy who takes care of all those blight issues as well. And I think that's a very powerful tool for the town to get some things fixed up. But again, that's going to increase his workload. And each of those things aren't the most fun task in the world to go get somebody in compliance with fixing up the property. And again, it always takes a lot of time. And I know Jim works very hard to try and get the issues resolved without going to court. Because if we end up going to court with all the legal fees and all that, that really goes through the roof. So with that, my recommendation for last year's budget was to increase his hours from 15 to 20. I think Eric told me that, this year's budget accounts for 19 hours. I'm not sure why 19 is better than 20, but anyhow, I do feel very strongly that, Jim's working good for the town, doing good things above and beyond what the call of duty is there. And we should pay him for a few more than we are right now.
Yeah, that's helpful explanation, I think. Very good. Anybody have any specific questions about the zoning agent salary hour increase? Okay, I guess we'll go into open space fund. You wanna
Okay,
go-
open space, probably a little harder to justify, but the town used to have $50,000 a year in the budget to build up the open space account. We haven't had that in several years, and I don't know exactly when that went away, but our plan of conservation and development talks about the last time we created that document. We're updating it now, but people were asked, what are you willing to pay more taxes for? And there were three things. One of which was open space. The other was conservation, which is very closely tied to open space. And then the third was the school. And so I thought that knowing that the RAM budget, was going down a little bit, this would be a good time to try to get a little extra money put back in the budget. $50,000 today isn't what $50,000 was 5 or 10 years ago. But, last year we tried to buy a piece of property, Ladano property off of Shoddy Mill Road. And, the state's got a goal that we should have like 21% of our land in open space. We've got to come up with 284 acres to do that. The last plan of conservation and development thought that would be very easy for us to go do. We haven't added much to the open space rules in the meantime. And the state, to encourage us to meet that goal, at least on the Ladano property, they were willing to pay 50% of the price. So, it's kind of a bargain for us, but we didn't have enough money in our account to raise our opening bid, if you will. And so I thought it was time, while we have a little break before, I think in the future, the education budgets might start going up again. Maybe we can't keep that money in the budget forever, but we can build on it while we can, because that's what the people of the town say they're in favor of doing.
Okay, very good. Helpful comments and context. Does anybody have any questions for Jed? Comments?
Thank you for clarifying that. That was well said. And thank you for clarifying that that's what the taxpayers have voted on. That's really important to me, especially in this year, right, where they would like their funds to go.
And I hadn't been pushing the issue, before now, because the budgets had been very tight.
Right.
It's been hard, but that's what the people say they want, and I don't see it getting any better. This is as good as it gets to put it in now.
And Jed, we did ask Eric to provide us with the balances and all the funds, so it's good to see that the open space fund does have, some money already there, and then to keep adding to it little by little, so.
Yep.
Understood.
If a great piece of property comes along and we've got a chance to get it, it would
Mhm.
be nice to be in a position where we'd be able to do so.
Yep, thank you again.
Thank you.
Any other further questions or comments for Jed? Jed, sorry. Okay, hearing none, I guess we're good. Thanks very much. We appreciate it. And again, thank you for what you guys do. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to our agenda item 4D, which is our actual budget review. The intention tonight for the board was to try to start to go through this line by line. Really kind of figure out any real concerns we have over specific line items, work those through, and eventually work our way to the end of the budget, which is probably not going to happen tonight. I know I don't have that kind of staying power, and if history is any indicator, it'll take some time to do that. But we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to share my screen just because I have it in front of me, if that'll work. Eric, can you give me that ability?
Sure. I thought I already did. Hang on.
Yeah, it looks like it says disabled.
Try that now.
Yep, got it.
Okay.
Okay, you should be seeing the Excel file now. I don't know, is that readable for you guys?
Can it get a little bigger or?
Get a lot bigger. It's just we lose a little.
We
Right,
lose
right.
a little bit on the outside, yeah.
But I'll try to bring it down. So just the first point of order, I think we had this, well, I shared over email that like the original column K had a calculated increase differential that had the formula was misstated. So I think that can go away. So in this column L, I'm just going to hide this column now. So column L actually shows the corrected percentage increase. The change to each line basically was, if there was a small change year over year, it really didn't drive much of a change in the percent difference. If there was a large change, it did drive, significant change in the percent difference. Nothing I think that was super huge, but I think it just bears, mentioning that's differential from what we had. So, all right. I guess the first question I would have is, let's kind of take maybe the revenue as a group. I didn't have any specific questions on many of the revenue items, except that there's a lot of Eric, there's a lot of assumption of increase on prior taxes, lien taxes, and interest taxes. Those just, significant. No, actually, that's not right. They're zeros. Why did I have that? I must have looked at something different. Never mind.
So for the record, I worked with the tax collector, and we are anticipating being more aggressive this year than we have been in the past. And I think for 1 year, we can increase that number, but as we work off some of the back stuff in future years, as we have less prior taxes to collect, that number will go back down, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Those make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to be aware of. Well, I must have been looking at the previous year's budget. Hopefully that sometimes skip the, in fact, I may even do this to make it more viewable, unless anybody really needs to look at 21, 22, or even 22, 23.
Yeah, I really
Well,
don't.
I like to keep some of them open. I don't want to shut everything, but why did you want to do that, Mark? I don't, whatever you.
Well, just so we had
Just
some notes here,
visibility.
just for the ability to kind of check and read some of the notes, that's all.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there isn't much that I can just scroll over.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if
You
it's
do-
okay, it'd be great to close at 22, 23 if it's not.
Yeah, that one's fine, I guess. That's significant for, because each year does help a little, but that's
Yeah,
fine.
sometimes it's worth seeing the trend, right? We want to go back and
Right.
check it out.
Especially just comparing 1 year is hard because we had.
I would like to see it if you don't mind.
Right, especially someone that wasn't here. Thank you. Yeah, Mark, maybe you don't mind on those changes.
You
just
want to see the
scroll
other
in.
ones too? Okay.
No, I did take some time earlier today to take a look at this. But if you could leave the 22, 23 and onward,
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
yeah.
would be
I'll
really
leave-
helpful to me.
Perfect.
All right. So state miscellaneous, Eric, we've got quite a bit of increase here. Is that just, it says not set yet? Is there any just reason, the reason we had that increase?
Yeah, there's should be. So in state miscellaneous, oh man, I gotta look at what the thing is, but there's about a $5,000 increase we look like we're gonna get. And
Okay.
this is composed of a bunch of different little things we get that it never really seemed appropriate to list them all out because they're all too small. But there is one $5,000 chunk that we're likely to get that we haven't gotten in the past. And I can figure out the details on that if you want.
You've got a rationale for including it, though. I guess that was really just, that
Mm.
wasn't really clear, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
You know,
Um, Part of, I mean, it's like part of that is, for instance, the fees we get back for NIPS. That goes into state miscellaneous. It's not a big amount of money, but it comes in a couple times a year. You know, so that's kind of like a catch-all for all the stupid little things we get back from the state. Not stupid, but
Mm.
you know, fairly small things we get back from the state.
okay. Got it. And senior transportation
Right.
grant, and I'm just kind of going through my comments and we
Yeah.
can back, see if anybody else has any others, but you've got $12,000. We didn't have anything in 23-24. But you've got, you know, estimate based on previous. Is there any risk to it or much risk to us getting that, or? what's the story there?
There's no guarantees. Actually, I think we'll get this one this coming year because we're in the final year of our it's a multi-year allotment, but each year we have to give them based on, we can get up to a percentage based on what we spend on drivers' costs. So it looks like we can get a little bit more because we spent more the last couple of years on drivers' costs. So we can get a little bit more. But you're right, it's not a guarantee, but we will probably end up getting that amount this year.
Anybody have any other question on those revenue items?
Nope.
Okay, I'm gonna clear that out. It sounds reasonable to me. I just wanted to understand the kind of the rationale. Miscellaneous revenues up, you know, it's not a huge thing. You just had a note here, records grant, should it have its own line item? I don't know what should we think about budgeting something differently there? I mean, it's only $5,000, so. I hate to add a
Yeah,
line item
I
for
mean,
something.
I don't. Again, that's a catch-all that's composed of a few different fees, just like, you know, rentals, you know, come from more than one source. But I don't want to list out, you know, every small little revenue source that we have.
Yeah, so I would say no line item there in that case would make. Unless somebody feels differently, I wouldn't want to change it.
No.
No, I agree.
The next one's a big increase.
Right.
Yeah, there is some rationale here for it. So. I know, Eric, if you want to talk to that, but you have 12,500 athletic field plus the, you know. This is
So we rent essentially our soccer field out to Vale East, which used to be called FC North. We have an annual like contract with them. So that's the bulk of what we pull in rental income. We also provide the elementary school the use of a senior transportation vehicle, and we just charge them essentially per trip. Because it's a lot less expensive than them using a transportation service to provide that service. And since we already own multiple handicapped accessible vehicles, it's, you know, cheaper overall for the town. So that is just the direct, you know, we know we're getting by contract $12,500 from Vale East. And based on the last year's data, we should be taking in right about, $5,000 for the senior transportation vehicle. So that's what that is.
Thank you.
A few other changes, mostly small stuff, fees, permits, etc. But does add up to quite a bit. And then, of course, we have this huge one here, which is the interest revenue line, and that's all due to that STIF account, right?
Correct.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Just amazing.
Wow. Whew.
it is.
amazing.
It's,
All credit to Cheryl and Eric for working that in. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
yeah, no, that's super cool. The thing to keep in mind is that if we looked at like how much we're making today, the number would even be higher than $140,000. What I'm doing with that is I'm assuming that over the next year, there will be some federal interest rate reduction. How much, I don't know. I mean, the feds, they make their reductions when they make their reductions, and that does affect the STIF rate. So I would expect next year we'll get less money than we're getting on a monthly basis right now.
Is that based on the prime lending rate or something?
Well,
Something
it's
like that, some index.
yeah,
Tied to
it's
the Fed,
something
okay.
like that. They put their money in a series of short-term investment vehicles, but they are somewhat dependent on the overall interest rate.
Okay.
I think they're talking about 3, from what I heard, separate decreases in the interest rate, but who knows how much they're going to be.
So it probably is wise to budget that conservatively then.
Yeah.
Which sounds like
I'm-
we've done.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I'm budgeting it conservatively enough, but we'll find out.
Any other questions from the board on the revenue items here?
And
Usually
keep in mind that, all those revenues from the state, there is no state budget yet. So, I mean, all of that needs to be taken with some grain of salt. It's unlikely that they're going to change, but that doesn't mean that the state can't make a change, in something. There's certainly a number of bills that would affect various different aspects of our budget that are still pending, but
as they are every year.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's all I was gonna say is we sort of wait this out every year and luckily it's been coming through.
Okay, well, if I can scroll down, and again, if I move too fast or you want to back up and talk to something else, anybody on the board, let me know. We'll certainly do that. So the next 2 line items are the RAM education budget. We have no say there. It kind of is what it is. As Eric has noted here, and I think Joanne had asked this question, or somebody asked this question.
Yep.
A few meetings ago, this does include the $119,000 credit that was announced after the original request. So you can see that differential there. And then we have the AES Board of Education budget at 2.7%. We had the presentation on that previously. Overall education budget is actually a decrease of 2.4% thanks to the RAM decrease, which we've discussed before is only temporary. And I thought Jed made a good point. I had the exact same thought when he was going through there about the open space fund. If we're going to fund it now, that would be something to do this year, but it would be something that would be something we definitely consider for removal maybe in future years if things got a little tighter.
Mark, can I speak to that? It's interesting because I think there's gonna be a lot of players we do know that the RAM budget will be down for a few years. And then, it'll go back up. So that's to be very mindful of that as we're going through spending, at the end. I mean, and there's gonna be a lot of, to me, different things that are gonna be vying for that extra money or where it should go. So, but
Yeah.
it's nice for the town now, but we have to be mindful that in the future, it will go back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Town administrator, 4% raise.
Holy crap.
What's all this? Administrative assistant, you've actually got a big reduction that says a stipend to assistant tax collector. I'm not sure we talked about that, Eric. Did we? What's the shift to there?
So, traditionally, this position has had a part-time admin assistant. That position was for basically 19 hours or less, no benefits. I think right now, when I look at what I need help with the most,
This is where you're talking about that project manager position.
Project manager.
yeah, my goal is to basically assign that work to the tax collector in exchange for a stipend.
Okay. Okay,
you
so
know-
this is not an actual position funding. This $5,000 would be a stipend to the assistant tax collector to carry out the duties of the administrative duties that you've got.
Right, because she is a union employee, so if I'm adding something to her workload, I am legally obligated to bargain with the union over the impact of that. I can just assign her the job. I have the legal authority to do that, but I'm obligated to bargain over the impact of that. So,
Eric,
know,
can
and
you let
I-
us, yep, sorry.
I think overall it's a lot cheaper to do that. And what I would like to do is basically free up a portion of that money to hire somebody on a very part-time basis to be a project manager for a couple specific projects. Just to take a few things off of my plate. And really, I think that's where I'm lacking. The biggest issue I have is the ability to get projects across the finish line and administer them. So that's what I'm hoping for. And I know I'm not going to find an admin assistant at what we're paying that's going to have that capability. So I would be looking at hiring a very part-time project manager. And depending on the grant or the project, some projects, the money can be found from within the project funding itself, but not all. So that's where I'm going with that. That's my desire.
Joanne?
Yeah, I just following up to that, Eric, I know, so this is already happening now, I believe, right? So what would the stipend be? Is it a flat $5,000 stipend? Has it increased? Was it 4,000 last year or what?
Well,
happened?
so, I have not signed an agreement with Kate,
Mhm.
nor really can I, unless it looks like you're going to budget it. I mean, the Board of Selectmen has already approved this,
Mhm.
but it really has to be approved by Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance.
Mhm.
Because if you're not gonna fund the line, I'm not gonna enter into an agreement with.
So there's no contract that's already been signed. For some reason, I thought at
Nope.
one of the Board of Selectmen meetings, maybe I heard when they approved, you should handle it this way.
I mean, they agreed with this basic concept.
Right. No, it's a good concept. I'm just asking the history. And so it hasn't started yet?
So I've had a conversation with the union regarding that and with the employee.
Mhm.
And I know they'll agree to it
Mhm.
at this level. But no, we haven't signed any sort of memorandum of understanding regarding this yet.
Okay, right, because when you have a stipend, right, there has to be a scope of work involved in everything. And that's a sizable stipend for, I mean, I'm sure it's needed, not talking about the price, but that's pretty sizable in a stipend amount. I work with stipends all the time, so there has to be a scope of work that you expect and it's great that I understand that the person that would be doing this was your former administrative assistant, now the tax collector. So she has the knowledge of what's needed and it's probably a win-win for the town. I'm not opposed. I just wondered if it had started lower than that and then it went up to this amount. Thank
No,
you.
there is no agreement in place at this point.
Okay.
So it kind of leads us to the next question, if nobody's got any specific questions on that, but you've got 15,000 from this project manager. So to me, that seemed like an unrealistically low number, but then I think you just answered it, clarifying your note there that some of the projects will actually do some self-funding for such a position.
Yeah, and this is not gonna
You're
be
really
a-
gonna get somebody to do this for $1,200 a month, you know?
No, but also you have to understand that I'm not looking for, I'm not expecting somebody working for me 20 hours a week doing this. I'm going to pick off a few very specific projects that I want help on and be able to pay for that help. I don't think, realistically, you're not gonna get anybody that's, for under about $50 an hour that can be an actual PM. If we're being realistic. So you're right, we're not buying a whole ton of hours doing this. But, if you can if we can get a couple things done faster than we're doing now, I think that's worth it overall to the town. And I look at it and say, in my world, it would be, in a perfect world, I'd love a full-time admin assistant and a PM that works for me. But I know we're not gonna be able to
So would
fund
I.
So the question is, what is the thing that I need the absolute most? And what can I live without? And I can certainly live without a full-time admin assistant. Although I see some value in that. It's just the fiscal reality says we can't really do both. I would rather have that pool of money to be able to pay a PM than I would to have more assistance, in the admin assistant role.
Right.
So what I'm looking at Kate to do is all the web stuff, and deal with meetings and agendas and stuff like that. And that's it. And basically I'll give up most of, and I've been working that way for the last 4 or 5 months anyway to try it out before I put it in the budget. So I'm pretty comfortable that I can get away with that. Is there some limitations? Yeah. Is it inefficient sometimes if I'm doing something and not an admin efficient? Yes. But what I need most is the PM help.
All right, well, I think that's good context. I'll just point out for the board, you may recognize this, but this is really a budget neutral change. If you look at it that way, we have a $5,000 stipend plus a $15,000 project manager wages lines. That's $20,000. It's actually slightly less than the 2023, 2024 budget for the administrative assistant. So it's actually a little bit less. Comments, questions from the board on any of the town administrator lines? Yeah, Joanne?
So I can appreciate what Eric is saying, and I understand his reasoning behind it. I often find as a resident and someone looking in that sometimes in our small town, that we're trying to make so much change and get so many things done that I can see that I feel like things aren't getting completed, or there can't be enough manpower or follow up. And I kind of go more on let's do some things and get them completed well versus like I know, and Jed Larson is still on. I know we still have the affordable housing thing going on. What are they going to do? There's just so many things in town that are half there and ideas that are coming forward. So I only hesitate with maybe slowing down a little bit and getting, because we are so small and yes, we have a lot of projects going on now. So if this is the solution and everyone agrees this is the solution, I have no problem with that. But it just gave me the opportunity to say that sometimes I feel like we keep going, and we're not finishing. And Eric has said that. It's not a critique. I give people credit for initiative of wanting to do so many things. That's a great thing. But I'm also a finisher in my own career. So I get what it's like to have to complete things. We have a lot of things started. So That's all. That's my 2 cents. So I'll have to juggle in my own mind what the better use of.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think it's just
Yeah.
kind of a Board of Selectmen slash.
Right, all right, true. I just felt like it was my opportunity to say it out there because we tend to go, go, go. And yeah, thank you. Board of Selectmen, I get it.
Anybody else questions on the town administrator section? Okay, we move down to the treasurer financial. So Eric, obviously, I think we talked a little bit about this one previously. So we're looking at doubling basically the treasurer salary. We all know we have a very part-time, very effective treasurer right now. She's not going to stay around forever. But I don't know if we have any more comments about that, Eric.
No, I mean, I do think that sometime in this upcoming fiscal year, we're gonna end up, Cheryl will eventually resign sometime in this year, would be my guess. So we are in the background working on the replacement strategy for her. I would rather retain her, but I mean, she just wants to kind of be retired.
Yep. Good. And the town treasurer clerk wage, you've got a significant increase there. I don't know if we have anything more to say about that.
Yeah, so the part of that is the contractual union wage, but more of that is a recognition that most weeks she's ending up working a little more than 30 hours anyway. And the Board of Selectmen agreed to take that position from 30 to 33, which was the recommendation from Cheryl, the treasurer. So that's what accounts for.
That just reflects that change then.
Yep.
Plus the,
That was my question. 'cause
plus
I
the
know- yeah.
contractual increase. Okay.
Right.
So that's based on what she would have been getting, Eric, and then just adding in up to 33 hours.
Correct.
Right, with
Right.
whatever the union negotiated. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Does anybody have any other line item questions regarding the treasurer financial section? Okay, we can move down to the town clerk. So we did hear from Carol earlier. We do have a 5% increase applied in this proposed budget to both her salary and to the supplemental salary. And if you caught earlier what she was saying, she's really not asking for this line item or this 63 or $300 increase on the supplemental. She's proposing a $6,000. So, it seems like it's a no-brainer to take that down to 6,000.
Mhm.
So I will say one thing just procedurally, rather than make a motion for each individual line item, it might, if we seem to be in general agreement, if there's no opposition from board members, I would say that we would go ahead and make corrections to the line items and then we would vote on them as a package. If you guys are okay with that.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
okay with that.
Any dissent or concern over that?
That sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
Sounds fine with me.
And so we could, if we had an issue with one particular line item that we changed at the end when we vote, we could discuss it at that point, Mark?
Yeah, or what I would propose we do, if there's some real concern or just dissension over a particular change, let's just make a motion on that particular line item and just call that done.
Perfect. All right.
And then we can
Okay.
just do the rest of them that are not, there's no concern or dissension over. If we're
Perfect.
deemed to be in full agreement, if everyone agrees, we'll just do that as a package motion at the end.
Great.
Okay. So what I would propose is that we reduce this to $6,000.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Right?
She
Take
said
out-
it, yeah.
Since she's
Sure.
not asking for it. Okay. Assistant town clerk salary set by the union, conference seminars. It's minor increase, it's 40%, but says the cost of conferences and seminars have increased. I mean, in my view, I'm not sure most of these worth, a couple $100 here and there are really worth
Mhm.
spending a lot of time on,
Yep.
if we're not in that, unless somebody sees something that doesn't make any sense. So if we're in agreement on this, does anybody have any other comments about the town clerk section?
I would just add that I think Carol made a compelling statement. I appreciate them coming. I mean, going in, I was thinking the 4% might have been okay based on, we had given her a significant increase last year due to everything we went, listened to, but she did make a compelling, I mean, I'm not there, if it's truly true that there's some long, long days like that, and we're talking not a lot of money, I would be okay with this 5% for this year, too. That was,
Agreed.
yeah. I'm not gonna nickel and dime, but I think it is important when someone goes a little bit over what everybody else had gotten, that we do listen to them. Yeah. That's my take, but.
Yeah, I think that I think we have to be a little careful because, we could continue doing this and doing this and doing this. And there's also the thing that, and I'm just, we pay for the position, not necessarily for the experience, but, 5-10 years down the road, you get a super experienced, super competent person in there, and then they leave and you get somebody who's spending less time. As long as they're doing the job, I guess it's okay, but we'll set a precedent with the salary. I don't disagree with this, frankly. Cost of living's increased. I don't think that's a lot of money for a professional position these days. And there are some long days. There probably are some that are not so long, but I'm okay with it.
I agree with the not year by year. That's why it's important, to bring up the history. Like, Kim wasn't on the board last year, so she didn't sit through the whole, what we, the thing. So that's a good point too, Mark.
What was the increase last year?
6%. I think it was. Is that right, Mark?
Well, we added that supplemental
It was
salary.
significant
So it
because
was
we added
pretty-
an extra line for her.
It's a little bit buried in there, so I was actually going to make the point that we might want to consider just consolidating that. If this is going to be an ongoing thing, we may as well rip the Band-Aid off and say, what we're really doing is paying the town clerk $63,750.
Oh, I don't like that. I like how we have it, but that's because we had set the ground that if they're for the future, we'd be able to not offer the supplemental because we had the 10 years of experience would get the supplemental. Again, we can go back to that if.
Yeah,
when
no,
the
I think
position-
that's fair. It's fair.
Yeah,
It's a fair
nothing's
observation.
set in stone, but I don't like to rip the Band-Aid off today.
I think that is kind of how we talked about it, that it would be
10
something.
years, yeah, 10 years experience, they'll get the supplemental, I mean, we can go case by case.
I don't know if we actually,
I
set
feel
a
like
time, but
we
it's a reasonable way to approach it, I think.
Mhm. And that was our good compromise of being able to give her a significant raise over 6%, with the additional.
Also, I'd like to add that we can't forget about all the volunteer stuff that she does for the town as well. She's always there,
Mhm.
not asking for money for those items.
And again, I agree with that, Louise, but it's more, we're not supposed to be considering that kind of like those, I get it, like we said, this person's perfect in that role.
Yeah,
When
whole
we do things like that, we're supposed to pull ourselves away from the person, but you're not wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we pay her for the job, right? So,
Yeah, it's the job more than the person, and
Right.
yeah, but you're not wrong.
are there any other questions or concerns over the town clerk section? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on down to the tax collector. We actually have a reduction here, and an increase in the software maintenance is fairly significant. Eric, maybe you talked about this, but what's going on with the reduction?
So we went from an employee that was a certified tax collector to hiring somebody that is not, but has to go through the training. So what I did is I hired her, but I made it very clear that I laid out all the steps between where she is now and where a certified tax collector. And the arrangement I made with the union is that at the point where she gets certified, she goes back to the same hourly wage as the previous. But until she's certified, you know, her salary increases with each step level she attains. That,
Okay.
because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to incentivize the heck out of her for going through and getting all the training and getting certified.
Yeah. What kind of process timeline is that? Just curious.
About 3 years.
Okay.
But she can get about 80% or 85% of the difference before. So basically she can finish all her classwork in about a year, and that will get her basically to about 85 or 90% of the salary. But
Okay.
she technically has to work 3 years in the role before she can be a certified tax collector.
Got it. So we'll probably see most of the financial impact of this reduction reversed in the next budget year, or possibly, assuming she gets that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Just trying to get an idea of the timeline.
Yep.
The other question I had that I highlighted here, you notice this QDS plus DMV, but you also had a line down on row 97 here that you mentioned the QDS software. Is that contract software maintenance? Is this used by both departments? So you're just kind of splitting it out, or what's the?
Yeah, so we get billed separately for each office.
Oh,
Because not in
okay.
every town is QDS used by both entities, but
Okay.
most towns they are. So we get a bill every year. We pay bills for the assessor's office for QDS, and the same with the tax collector.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on the tax collector section here? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll move to the assessor.
Real quick, sorry, I saw
Yep.
some driving to and from classes. Is that part of the credentials or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So in fact, she was at class pretty much all day today.
That's a good question, Brian. Yeah.
So, yep.
So we're paying her to go to the class as well?
Or is that mileage?
That's
No,
mileage.
So we pay
No,
for
I
the
know, I
cost
realize
of
it's
the
mileage. I
class.
just wonder if she's on the clock when she's in the class.
Yep, absolutely.
Have to be.
Okay. Understood. She's obviously at a lower rate though, so.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really change much for us as long as she's getting the job done, I guess. Okay, good
Good.
questions. Other questions or comments? Okay, let's move down to the assessor line. We already talked about the QDS software increases. We've got a small increase on the assessor and assistant assessor salary. And then significant, although, you know, it's just a couple $100 for the NADA book. This is the Auto Dealers Association book that allows them to estimate the value of the automobile, of the cars and trucks and stuff that are property tax related, right, Eric?
Yeah, and this is one where all the towns are getting screwed, and that's one of the reasons why. There are a bunch of reasons, but why they want to get. Why there was an effort to shift away from NADA values for assessments on cars was because NADA got bought out, and the cost they're charging the Assessors Association in the state has gone up really dramatically. So they're talking about going to a straight depreciation model, instead of using NADA values. That was supposed to have been implemented in this budget cycle, but it's been delayed by the legislature twice. And of course, now the legislature is talking about eliminating car taxes totally. So obviously we wouldn't need that if they eliminate car taxes, but I don't think that's actually gonna happen. So.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any questions on this section, for Eric, or any further things for discussion? All right, let's move down to the registrar section. We did hear from the registrars about some of the things that are going on in their world, why they're requesting this 5% increase. I will note that the values that are in there right now only represent a 4% increase. So the values that are in there are not a 5% increase. It sounds like they did request 5%, but the calculation is only bringing it to about a 4%. So we could certainly change that to meet their 5% request. Now, I'm not opposed. These people work pretty hard and they don't get paid that much.
Well, considering what you talked about, Mark, with the amount of days with the early voting and all the other things, it sounds like they're going to be putting in a lot more hours. So it doesn't seem unreasonable, in my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, it's a tough job too. It's long.
Tough job.
Not many people want to do it.
I just want to note that I was one of the 20 people that voted today.
Anybody have any other thoughts on that? Should we?
I tend to agree with you on that because, you know, I do some of the work over there as well, and I see how much is involved. So I don't think an extra 1% is unreasonable.
We're talking, just to clarify, we're talking about the salary line, the 106.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what the difference computes to? It's like $130.
Yeah. So I was going to say, you take 120, 12,000.
I did the math. It's
Yeah, let's just do it.
129.78. I mean, for goodness sakes.
Let's
do it.
Yeah.
Trying to find the right keys on this keyboard is not.
Mark, can you just highlight all the ones that you change? That way I can go back in, because I mean, the way this spreadsheet works, you're meant to do the individual fields, not the overall.
It should be changed in the tab, right? So.
Correct.
All right, so I'll highlight it in light blue.
Okay.
Which means, did we change anything up here?
We changed that one at the top.
Here.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Hey, look at that. Calculates to 5%. We must have done something right.
There's
Further questions on the registrar section?
Nope.
Okay, moving down to elections. We have some increases here, mostly for election salaries. Again, we kind of heard what the differentials were. Again, it seems like big numbers, but we're only talking about a $6,000 increase, and it's not needed. It won't get used. I guess it's some one observation. I would think anyway, in terms of salaries and what, I certainly don't dispute that these people need some pizza delivered to them in the middle of the workday or whatever, and when they're doing this work, they're not paid much, and we have volunteers helping out or whatever. So me, I'm good with all this, but
I'm good.
Good.
okay, I'm not sure this note here, I just pointed out, this is a little confusing to me. It says 10% increase check number from 23-24. So Eric, were you thinking that number that was in here was maybe not correct?
hang on, let me pull up there.
I mean, again, we're only talking small differentials here, but I just.
Yeah, that 17.8 number, I think was incorrect.
It's not here. Okay. All right. Okay. So it sounds like we're in agreement for leaving this right where it is then.
Yes.
Okay, building department, we've got a 7% increase, the wages, that's contract, admin, same thing. And the wetlands commission, 1.1%, no real change there, not significant. We do have an increase in the zoning agent salary. We heard from Jed on the reason for that. I mean, to me, that's, you know, again,
From 15 to 19 hours, is that what it was?
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, it says that there's actually a 31.7% increase, so yeah, it's slightly less than 33 than the 5 hours, but it's close. Doesn't sound like that's, you know, unwarranted. And again, it was helpful to hear him talk about the need, and I certainly would agree with this. These are not easy things to do when you're trying to manage the blight ordinance and everything else. So
yeah,
and those are, I think that's a huge benefit to our town, frankly.
Absolutely.
You need to have that facility.
And just for the history of that, the Board of Selectmen, after last year's budget was adopted, made the decision because they weren't getting enough done that they wanted on blight complaints. And they basically motioned and made me increase that from 15 to 19 hours. So we're actually, he's been working 19 hours, you know, basically this whole budget year, the whole current budget year.
Oh, the entire year. Yeah, Jed said something about that, but okay.
Yeah, so we will overexpend this year on that. We're not over yet, but by the end of the year, we will certainly be overexpended in this budget year. But again, that was a direct, you know, decision by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
Just a follow-up, Mark. So I guess the whole 19-hour thing, Eric, is the benefits situation, correct? So
I mean,
you
why
just-
do we not?
No,
make
I
it
mean,
20
I-
hours?
Well,
Correct.
no, I mean, I'm thinking, I know that it's because Jed had said, well, I don't know why there's 20 and not, 19 is significant. So we make sure that he does his 19 because of the benefit, right? You would have to offer benefits if he goes
Hit
over.
20.
Yeah.
If you went up to 20,
Correct. We are required through the state, what we would not have to offer healthcare benefits,
Mhm.
but at 20 hours, he would automatically be enrolled in the town's retirement program.
And Murph, and that's
In
a big
Murph.
percentage. Okay.
Yep.
So, okay, thank you.
And note on the permit link fees, you've got an explanation there. It was kind of hidden, but I just opened it up. This is an increase. I'd seen this earlier. This is an expense increase, but it's offset by charge to the customer through the permits that are issued, right?
Right,
Permit
so
fee
every
up in the
person
revenue
that
line.
everybody that pulls a permit pays a $15 fee when they pull a permit. And that fee essentially goes to Permit Link. But we show it on the revenue side and we show it on the expense side.
Okay. All right, any comments, questions, recommended changes to the building department section? Okay, hearing none, we can move on. The next section is the library. We do have 6.3% increase in the wages. Noting minimum wage increase is affecting there. So is that must be driving most of it, I guess.
Yeah, that's the primary driver of that. You know, for the purposes of calculation, and one of the things that's unfortunate is we don't know what minimum wage is going to be set at next year. Because the state hasn't made that determination yet. Like, it went up to 15 something, right now. We're assuming it's gonna go up a little bit. So that's why. It's not 6.3%. It's actually less than that compared to what they're making today. But remember, as of December 31st, minimum wage increased based on state law, so we had to respond to that.
Yeah. Any questions or comments on the library section? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the civil preparedness. We have a civil preparedness salary budget up at 4%, 3% rounded up slightly, paid twice per year. They, it's $30 differential over what it was previously. I don't really see any issues here, at least for me.
No.
So there's a slight chance that will go up significantly, but it will only go up if we get the civil preparedness grant for the state paying for that salary.
So it'd be offset by a grant line on the revenue side.
Yeah, so it's not something we've ever asked for before, but we can ask for. And so we are gonna ask for it this year. And if we do get it, we will increase the stipend for that and then be able to get more done.
Who are you paying? Is it like a civil preparedness director or something like that?
Yeah, so I am technically the emergency management director, but there is an emergency management coordinator. That is also the person that runs the CERT program for the town.
Okay.
So that is who that salary goes for. And it's a pretty small stipend considering, what they're actually required to do.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on the civil preparedness section? Okay, so moving down, we have town office building. I just got to make a note that, our subtotal here, we're at about a 5%, 5.8% increase for these services. Obviously, our line item at the end is significant for the town budget. So we'll see some of this go up. Town office building payroll service is being dropped because we're transitioning away from prime pay.
Yeah, we can't eliminate all our costs from prime pay because we're still using their time clocks. We're considering other time clock methods or other time clock vendors because they're charging us an awful lot just to continue to use their time clocks. But that's what the cost would be compared to, what we were paying.
Okay. Water testing going up, the percentage is high, but it's just, $200.
Mm-hmm.
So, requirements. Again, elevator contract, 6%, a couple $100. Not really anything there.
So I had a question with the
Yep.
permit.
Yep. Go ahead, Louise.
It looks kind of weird. And
Yeah.
unless there's sort of funding.
Is that a mistake, Eric?
That is a mistake. The previous last year we did actually budget $2,400. 22-23 we did not, but our elevator permit is $240 a year, not $2,400.
Oh,
Right.
so that's correct, but the earlier budget was a mistake, you're saying?
Correct. We missed it in last year's budget.
Oh, okay. So 240 is correct then.
Correct.
Okay, and you even have your annual state.
Right.
All right.
I
okay.
can't spell, but
That's
yeah.
all right.
saw-
I got you covered.
The 21 to 22 was also 240.
Yeah.
Right.
So these were an error, basically.
Those
Okay.
are,
Yeah, and if you look, yes, correct.
all right.
Computer tech support, we've got a cost of living increase, building maintenance, closer to the actual cost of their building maintenance is saying, so you're basically saying 4,500 is a little more accurate. It's only a couple $100 there. Civic Ready Up, Civic Plus. This is our website hosting place.
Yeah, Civic Ready is, that is the emergency alert. And Civic Plus is the website.
Okay.
So we pay for both of those services.
Okay.
We do need a new contract for Civic Plus. They are, obviously they're trying to upsell us and go to a fancier platform, but we're basically saying, no, we do have to migrate from our existing Drupal platform to a new Drupal platform because the one we're on now will no longer be supported. But as long as we go Drupal to Drupal, we don't have to do anything. So that's what we're, we don't have the options that the fancier ones have. And we've considered it and looked through what advantages it would be to pay more money and get a more sophisticated version of it. But in the end, I just don't see enough value for the cost difference. So we're continuing on with the cheap version.
Okay. Alarm monitoring 10%, just $50. Actual expense on postage based on 2023 increase, assuming same number of cents, 5.7. So it's just a more realistic figure you're saying for postage.
Well, that's just the relative, how much the post office fees have gone up,
Yeah.
Per piece mailed.
And we just assume that our mailing will be about the same.
Correct.
Does the early voting doesn't have any impact on that, right? So you do
Early voting, no. But like how many town meetings we hold, that kind of stuff does have a pretty big effect.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Printing costs drop a little bit just to more reflect more accurately the prior year's expense. Electricity, so we're a little bit off of the peak, so it's actually dropped. You're reducing that a little bit. No more fuel oil, switch to propane for building. Propane, you're showing a $3,500. So there's a net reduction of the budget of $1,500 in fuel.
Correct.
Costs. Okay.
Now, the only thing that's a little touchy with propane is that unlike fuel oil consistently the best time to lock in for the next fiscal year is like the December to January. And with propane, it's always cheapest to lock in over the summer, when the futures contract rates are the lowest. So unlike fuel oil, which we would have already locked in for now, propane, we're not likely to lock in till after the budget year has started. So that's a little bit more of a gamble, but 175 seems to be fairly realistic and something bad global happens.
Okay. Is community center going to share the same fuel source or?
The community center will be exclusively heat pump for heating. The only propane for that will be for the commercial stove.
Okay.
So it will just piggyback on. We're not going to have a separate line item. It just piggybacks off the same tank.
Yeah, that makes sense. Basically a $2,000 increase or 57% on office supplies. You're noting that we're consistently overspending this budget in prior years, so this is a more realistic figure. Makes sense. And that pretty much brings us to the end. I mean, we have an increase too in the computer repair services. It's probably just a market increase. Anybody have any questions that Eric hasn't already addressed or comments?
All set by me.
All set.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the community center. This one might be a little more interesting. So this is all new. We haven't had any of these expenses in our budget before. I know some people were asking some questions about the wages for the director and asked about the job description. And the kind of question came up about whether a full-time director is needed. You know, I haven't looked at this question certainly, but it does seem like for a small town, a full-time position out there is a lot to me. But I haven't put a lot of thought into what we're asking them to do. It seems like there's a lot of stuff outside of like normal, just running the, you know, senior activities or something. There's a fair amount on that job description. And it's all a benefit to the town. So, you know, I'm not feeling super strongly one way or the other, but this is a significant increase to the town's expense for sure. The town wanted this. There's no doubt about that. That was made very clear in a lot of meetings that I know all of you would have, you know, heard those discussions. But that it is means we got to pay for it.
It seems like, in my opinion, if it's okay, Mark, that, I mean, you think about Carol Lee's position, how long she's been doing that job, very important job, a lot of hours. She's making less than that. It just seems like a lot of money.
Oh, that's true.
She's making a little
Seems
more
like-
with the supplement, but yeah.
Well, all right, with the supplement now, but I mean, again, our town clerk for how many years? And this is a brand new position. I'm just thinking to myself, like, they're gonna be scheduling events. I don't know enough about the position. It just seems like a lot of money, in my opinion, for the position, but I don't know a lot about the position. For a brand new position, I'm trying to justify in my head $60,000.
Good thought, Bill. I hadn't thought about that with the Carol angle.
Yeah,
That-
also
Well,
Carol
think-
does a lot of those things on the job description. She does some of those things already too. So like especially the recreation planning, things like that, for some of the stuff on there.
But
I just wanted to add
two
that.
things. One, Carol isn't necessarily gonna be the town clerk for all that much longer.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And
The recreation
two,
commission.
the Board of Selectmen wanted to switch the responsibility of that from Carol to whoever ran the community center. So,
Yeah, that way you do control it, right? Especially if she were to move on or retire or something, then yeah, we don't.
I mean, it's actually through the rec center, not just through Carol, through the rec commission, I'm sorry. Not just through Carol. I just had that in there.
When
So, Eric,
everybody, I don't want to take the lead on this. I want everybody else to speak. I definitely have some clear opinions on it because I kind of got swayed in a meeting. So I'll listen to everybody else thought, but I do want to acknowledge that Bill's point about where the wage scale is. I think it could be a little high too, but again, I'm going to sit back and then I definitely have some quick thoughts I want to
Yeah.
extend.
One thing I would say about the wage scale is we have to be a little careful about comparing it to
Oh, right,
what we have in place now.
right.
We also have to compare it to what the market is out there.
And that's what
And
I'll speak to.
I've got factory maintenance technicians that are making this much money.
yeah,
That's the way the world is right now. This is a different job, you know, and it's a different orientation. I understand that, but I just want to make that point. So we consider that as we evaluate it.
and again, I don't know if Eric, if you wanted for our benefit, because I don't know all the details. I mean, could you discuss some of the other responsibilities this person would have? Just so we get a better idea of what we're paying for?
sure. So I looked at it as essentially providing three functions. The first is, for lack of a better term, director of of what would be a senior center. That is managing senior transportation, which includes hiring and firing of drivers, doing all the scheduling, and dealing with the paperwork for CDOT, for the grant programs. Managing the luncheon program, the senior trips program, and then, so that's kind of the senior focused programming. The other thing that I see is a really big shortfall of where we are now in terms of senior programming is that we don't have any real active senior program. We have bingo and we have things and we have movie night, but there's nothing active. And if you look at what most senior centers are doing, they have a strong component towards exercise related stuff, and that's something we don't do any of, which we probably should. So that's one hat. The second hat is all the programming and scheduling related to a normal community center, right? Because this facility is going to function as both. And then the third thing is switching the recreational programming and scheduling, onto one, person, that's accountable. And that person, as I see it, is, for lack of a better word, one of the 3 director level positions in the town. One being myself, one being Jay Tuttle, one being whoever handles that end of things. So that would mean getting the Board of Selectmen directly out of the field coordination stuff, putting all that on that person. That person should be doing coordination with AHM, both for summer programming, and then starting to shift services on site here, as opposed to making all the Andover residents go to Hebron when they need AHM services. The Board of Selectmen was adamant that they want to make that facility available for rental and special events and try to bring in some income doing that. And that means somebody is going to have to manage that. And that person, most senior/community centers deal with their own grant writing, because there's a fair amount of revenue that's available for those types of entities. And we're not going after a lot of that now. And we should be. We just took delivery of $130,000 vehicle for senior transportation that we got because, Kathy Palazzi wrote the grant with a little bit of help from me, but not a lot. And that's the kind of payoff we have. So I see, and they ought to be responsible for their budget and fiscal management for everything that happens in the community center. And then the last thing is that eventually that building will be the town's emergency shelter. And whoever runs that is going to have an active role in shelter operations when needed, because we really need to transition that away from the school for a bunch of different reasons. But one of them being, if you're using the school as a shelter, you're not using it for its primary purpose, which is educating kids. So those are kind of the general. So I see basically 3 distinct hats for this person, senior services, community services, and recreation-based services as being their job, and them being a department head responsible for their own budgeting. And then if we decide that that's more than we want to do, then I think we're looking at a part-time position. But I don't know that, if we were going to go to a part-time position, I would probably try to find somebody that was retired and worked in a senior center or ran a senior center and wanted something part-time. But that would not be a director level position, and we would probably just strip it back to just the senior related stuff and drop everything else from the job description. If you want to make it part-time. So that's kind of how I look at it. But
All right. Yeah, thanks, Eric. I'm gonna make I guess I'll comment on what my position would be on this. This is new stuff. As I said, it was pretty clear the town wanted the community center. The Board of Selectmen, working with Eric, have kind of defined the roles and responsibilities. And frankly, there's a lot. There's a lot, little pieces that they're thinking this person's going to be taking on. So, where's the salary need to be? We quibble about that. I think the real question is probably, is it a full-time or part-time position? I am in favor of leaving this right where it is for a couple of reasons. Like I said, first, the town told us that they wanted this community center. This is an important aspect of what we're doing as a town. And I'm kind of agnostic. Originally, I looked at it and said, yeah, geez, you really need a full-time person, but we have not, I would be in favor of leaving it where it is. We still have to have our hearing on the budget, and we still have to have our budget meeting. To me, I think if the town taxpayers are very averse to paying for a full-time position, they're gonna make that, the opportunity is gonna be there for them to voice that concern and to, make the change during the town budget meeting, should we decide to leave it at. We can, certainly once the budget hearing is done, we have our budget hearing meeting. It's not usually that well attended, but hopefully we'll get some attention. If we get, some pushback and saying, hey, this makes sense to do a full-time position, you guys should reduce it, and we're hearing that elsewhere. We can always take that action later after the meeting, but I would be in favor of leaving it right where it is right now and kind of letting the feedback come to us to see where people are in the town.
I have a question on that.
Yeah, Louise?
Are the benefits of that person included in that 60,000, or is there going to be a separate line item for that?
No, if you went to the benefits sub, you would see that there's, I make two assumptions for this, that this person will get MRF. So they will be enrolled in the retirement plan, and just to be safe, I said, we'll assume for healthcare benefits that they will be a 1+1, a person for a spouse. Now, maybe we get really lucky and they want to do fee in lieu of, and that saves us a bunch of money. But for budget purposes, you got to assume, they're going to be both retirement and healthcare.
Okay, but if that goes down to a part-time, less than 20 hours, which is probably not even reasonable, that means the benefits wouldn't be there, right?
Correct.
Okay.
My thoughts on this, guys, now that I had listened to the Board of Selectmen too, and I was more in favor of part-time at the beginning and starting slow. But when you're in a role like this and you're responsible for so much, in the way the town is just opening this community/senior center, we have so many seniors that have wanted this for so long. So we want it to be done right. We need to have a responsible person. It's not just scheduling either. It's not just putting it on a calendar. It's making sure all the permits are correct. It's going to be, I don't know what kind of programs are going to go, but there's a lot of things to it. And I like the idea of when they talked about it, it was scheduling for the whole town, the fields, the activities, the people, programs at AES and the AES gym. I mean, we kind of do that where I work now. Obviously the school has first dibs on everything that, that is in that building, whether it's the library or the gym or whatever activities are going on for the school. But this person would work in concert with the school people, like Eric had mentioned, in consult with the Recreation Commission, in consult with social services, and hopefully everything that AHM could bring, in concert with the senior center, because all the people that are involved in these things in our town are really close to retiring too, and they're going to bring all that knowledge with them. It's a big responsibility. I could see, I know Eric set the goal high with the salary. I've seen some advertised salaries. Mark's right. I mean, it depends where you work. You can get higher salaries wherever. This is a small town. I'm comparing it to what I've seen advertised for smaller towns. I didn't quibble too much about the salary. I think the salary could be a little bit lower, but like you said, that's not what we're here for. You have to set up an office, you have to set up all the paperwork, you've got to get everything going, you've got to get your plans ready, it's not just walking in and it's going to work. I just think you have to give a little grace to getting a whole program set up and running. And it's a big undertaking for the town. So that's my 2 cents. Initially, I thought part-time all the way, but then I was thinking of the backup work that has to be done. And it's a lot. And I'm more of, it's a 40-hour position. There's a few people in town I think Eric put something like 35. I'm not in favor of that for this. I would think this would definitely be a 5-day-a-week position, maybe taking an afternoon off if they're gonna do an evening event. But that's, so that's my thought. I think there's a lot to this. I also wanted to ask Eric, I was big on, I know that there's people in the building that get stipends, not to take money away from someone, but if you're going to have a position like this that is a big position, then I wouldn't think people in the town that are doing senior luncheons or senior transportation or getting stipends for that. I think those will go away. Am I correct?
Right now, senior transportation, everything else related to seniors is running, completely with volunteer. The drivers get paid, but those are the only paid positions.
Yeah.
There
I know
is
there's a person, but I don't want to name a person in the
So-
meeting. There's someone getting a stipend for some of this work. I would hope that stipend, would go away.
Well, no, actually, I don't think that should, because I think that is one role I do not want the senior center director. I don't want the senior center director being the social services person, and agent for the town. I very definitely want those two roles separate.
I highly disagree, but sorry, it's not here for me to decide that. But if you're gonna bring on a full-time person and then have programs and things, the person that's doing it now has her own job. But again, I don't want to debate that, but if we're gonna consider a big full-time, there's definitely space in this. Those should be married, I would think.
Eric, can you expound on your reasons why you think they should be kept separate?
Yeah, because I think you're dealing with kind of two, on the one hand, you're running a facility and you're running a whole series of programs, and on the other hand, you're dealing with a bunch of things that are like for instance, anytime we get into a bad hoarding situation, that's a social services person doing it. The person that's, getting people and dealing with Operation Fuel, that's social services.
Maybe I'm
Getting
not-
involved whenever we have evictions, that's social services. That's not community center related stuff. So I see those as two very distinct, different job functions.
I see exactly what you're saying. Thank you, Eric.
I'll have to have a private conversation with you because maybe I'm not understanding what I thought I was thinking. So clearly that wouldn't be together. I was thinking of more social services, bringing in things to the community center that would, so maybe there's a huge need in our town that person gets a stipend for doing those things that you talked about. I didn't know that. Thank you.
I guess I'm gonna drop my original objection to the 60,000 and just let us move on here.
Well, this is
Brian,
our
did
one
you wanna-
chance to have a conversation. I don't mind conflict or asking questions, so I hope I'm not off-putting, but I think it's our time to have a healthy debate.
Yeah, well, we should be
on
talking
big
about the
decisions.
financing of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're here
Yeah.
for. Brian,
I
did you
feel
have
better.
a comment?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I like the idea of putting it to the townspeople. That was like a brilliant idea because I thought that was a really good idea. But I'm looking, and I'm not debating whether the wage is too much, part-time or any of that, but like, is one person gonna be able to handle all these things? What if they're sick? There's 7 days of the week instead of 5. People are gonna be using it on the weekend. I don't see an assistant there. And maybe it makes more sense to have multiple part-time. And I don't know. I don't know how many seniors we really have that necessitate. And I don't know what we anticipate for the community to come out to actually use the community center. I don't know if there's been any surveys or anything. So I don't know. There's just a lot of questions, and I don't think it's as straightforward. A lot of these things are handled with various boards, and I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm on the fence about it.
it's tough to call because it's so new, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and there might be a little bit of the chicken and the egg thing. It's like, you know, how much demand is there gonna, you know, how much is going on there? But if you had somebody promoting it and managing it, maybe a lot more could go down there. But how much? How many people are really gonna use it? It's a tough thing to kind of suss out.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at. But I like your idea about putting it for the town to also make it get their opinion on it.
Yep.
Other comments, questions, or suggestions here? Well, should we move on then? Do you guys want to
Yes.
kind of leave it as it is for now and just,
I think it's good that we got to just talk about it, you know,
Yep.
and see, because we received the job descriptions. That was good. Yeah, it's good to
and
have.
it's not our last whack at it. We can come back and revisit things
Right.
as we learn more, think
Yeah.
about it, ruminate it. So,
Yeah.
I'm good with moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think letting the town talk with us about it is a great idea.
yeah, getting some input anyway.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's a good idea.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a suggestion and I'll leave this up to the board to vote, but we've done pretty well here. We've actually gotten through quite a bit of this.
Mhm.
It's almost 9 o'clock and I'm running out of steam because I was picking somebody up at the airport again at midnight last night and had an early meeting, so. It's not about me, but if I start to snore, then you'll know why. But I'm gonna propose that we consider bringing this to a close and picking up again in our next meeting. We did make a lot of progress here. I think we did well.
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Just one question before you do that, is there anything you want that I haven't given you so far for the next meeting? Is there
No,
anybody you want to talk to specifically, or anything you want to know prior to that meeting that I can supply?
Not off the top.
Anyone?
I'll just say thanks again, Eric. You add a lot of clarity to so much of this, so thank you.
Yeah, I
think
don't
we're
have
pretty
anything else.
good. Yeah, I think we've asked for everything and now it's just getting through it and then eventually, you know, the bottom line things. Yeah. Nope.
Good.
Okay, so, you know, I don't think we certainly need a motion to pass a motion on some of the adjustments we made in this meeting. They won't become official until we do make a motion and vote on them, but we can kind of hold them in as placeholders until we next regroup and then vote on it at that time, if everybody's okay with that. Just makes things a little more clean. Any
long as we
other
track
questions,
them well.
comments before we, do we get a second on that motion to adjourn?
Yeah, Brian did.
Okay. Brian did? Okay, thanks, Brian. Any further discussion? Comments, questions? Now's your chance. Okay, we'll have a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No one? No one wants to keep talking about this?
Excellent.
Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend. And again, if you have questions you might want Eric or somebody else to entertain answering during in advance of our next meeting, just by all means, share those